In this video I'm going to be making a striped platter. The materials that we're going to be using today are maple, walnut, and cherry. The width of my jointer limits me to making square boards no wider than 6 inches across. So in order to be able to maximize the amount of usable wood within that 6 inches, the first step is to do a rough square on the table saw. This cherry has a fairly deep knot in it, so during the rough squaring we're just going to cut that chunk out. The first step to squaring a board is to run one of the wide sides across the surface of the jointer to create a flat reference side. The jointer's table and back fence are exactly 90 degrees from each other. So if we put our reference side next to the back fence, we can then plane one of the short sides exactly 90 degrees from the reference. Since the table saw's fence and blade are exactly parallel, we can then put the reference side down, the 90-degree side against the fence, and cut another exactly 90-degree short side. A planer's blade is parallel to its table, so if we put our reference side down, we can use the planer to slowly shave the top off of the wood until it becomes parallel with the reference side. We take many shallow cuts to prevent the planer from gouging into the board. These triangles ensure that our grain lines up correctly after we've cut strips. Since we removed the middle of the cherry, we need to start from the middle and work our way out. The triangle markings are used to ensure that the strips are in the right order and oriented correctly. Glue is applied generously to both surfaces to ensure that there are no air pockets. The blue tape is to prevent the glue from getting into the wood pores before we're ready to use that side. Now that we have small groups made, we can remove the blue tape and start joining the small groups into larger groups. Flattening the ends is usually not necessary, but I'm going to be using the scraps for another project later and I need them square. The shallow hole we just drilled sits on the axis pin of this circle cutting jig. The bowl blank is then attached to the lathe using the same hole. The circle cutting jig leaves two flat sides on the blank, so we need to make the blank perfectly round. Once the sides are round, we can start cutting into the bottom and work towards the final shape. This cut needs to be just slightly bigger than the diameter of the chuck jaws. Once flipped around, the bowl will be held to the lathe by expanding the jaws until they're snug within this circle. Once the bottom is cut to its final shape, we begin sanding the tool marks off. Using only hand sanding can sometimes leave shallow marks. By spinning both the bowl and the sandpaper, individual sand grains are never given the opportunity to sit in one place and dig into the wood. With the bottom finished, the next step is to begin shaping the outer edge. The platter's edge is far enough out from the lathe that we can begin working on the top before flipping the piece over. The rotational velocity at the outer edge is much higher than in the center. I want to get as much of the outer edge done as possible while the wood is attached by a screw. Once we flip the platter over, it will only be held to the lathe by the compression of the chuck inside of that ring we cut earlier. This is a friction polish that hardens and cures when exposed to heat. This is a thickness gauge. I need to be aware of how much wood is left in the center. If I'm not careful, I can cut through the bottom of the bowl and end up with a very pretty funnel. The final step is to burn in my mark.